Be ready, 5 seconds. Sir, we all know that India is a democratic country and our democracy is mature. That is why, way back in 1950, we included fundamental rights in our constitution. So, if we see the Constitution of India, Article 19 provides for freedom of speech and expression. The word expression means it is a right to express or not to express. So, if we enforce compulsory voting, then it goes against the mandate of Article 19 of the Constitution of India, which specifically provides that it is within the sweet will of the individual and the right to vote or not to vote is a fundamental right of the citizen. At the same time, if we also see Article 21 of the Constitution of India, it says that no person shall be deprived of his life and liberty except in accordance with law. When we see the word liberty, liberty includes the right to vote and not to vote. It includes both. So, it cannot be enforced in view of the mandate of fundamental rights which have been provided under Articles 19 and 21 of the Constitution. If such a law is enacted, then it will not withstand the tide of judicial scrutiny before the court of law. Sir, if we see Article 326 of the Constitution of India, it is provided that any citizen can register himself as a voter. He has a right to register himself as a voter, but it is not a duty to register himself as a voter. No duty has been cast under Article 326 of the Constitution. It is an option available to the citizen of India. He can either register himself as a voter or he need not register himself as a voter. Therefore, in my view, such a law cannot be enacted by Parliament. So, at the most, if we want to increase the percentage of voting, then certain incentives may be provided by the government by making a provision under MGN, REGA, PDS, etc. But if a citizen did not cast his vote, on that count also he cannot be denied these facilities. So, such a law also cannot be enacted. We can only persuade the voters, and such type of persuasion is possible by providing political education. Apart from this, we can do one more thing, because in rural and urban areas we are applying the same yardstick. The Election Commission is required to see to it. In the urban areas where the distance from the polling booth is very less, the polling booth should be installed on the basis of the number of voters. Normally, in one polling booth, around 1000 to 1200 voters are there. So, the same yardstick cannot be applied with respect to the rural areas, where the distance from polling booth is sometimes 10 kilometers, 11 kilometers. They are poor people and they do not have proper communication. They do not have transport system in the rural area. Therefore, the Election Commission is required to see to it that at least in the rural areas we must have more polling booths. Here, I would like to make a suggestion. Suppose in one Lok Sabha constituency, the number of booths are 2500, and instead of doing anything more, if they increase the number of booths to 4 times, then nothing more is required. Automatically, the percentage of voting would increase. Only on account of lack of communication and lack of transport, the voting percentage is very poor. This is the main reason more people do not go for voting. So, sometimes we see that voting is 35%, 40%, 45%, 50%. Now, these days, voting percentage has increased. Due to political education, it has increased to 60% or sometimes even to 70%. So, even in the rural areas where a particular concentration is more, then in that particular booth we see more percent of voting. But where the distance from booth is more, the percentage of voting is very poor. Secondly, if you want to see transparency in the electoral process, then more number of polling booths are required. Otherwise, the candidate, on the basis of his money power, can provide more vehicles and fetch more votes. Therefore, in the rural areas at least, the number of polling booths should be increased. The distance from polling booths should not be more than 2 kilometers, so that every voter can exercise his right to franchise. So, this modality can be adopted and this reform can be introduced by the Election Commission. Sir, apart from this issue has also arisen a number of times before the Supreme Court. The same issue also came up before this august House with respect to the compulsory voting.